Now let's see whether we can use variables in our program along with the print statements. Okay, let's go here, create a new file, give it name variables.py, close the operators.py and close this as well. Now let's see how to create a variable in this. So let's say I create my first variable as number equal to 12. Then I want to perform the addition with the numbers. So let's say I create another number underscore 2 equal to 12, let's say 13, and result equal to number plus number 2, and we are going to print the result. Let's say we want to also give a message, addition of 12 and 13. Now let's run the file, python space variables.py. It has printed addition of 12 and 13 is 25. So yes, we are able to do with variables. We are able to use variables in our print statement, and we are able to calculate the operations with the variables directly. So we saw that using this print statement, we can actually add a variable and it will still work the same way. But if you see here, I had to hard code these two values. So what if I do not want to hard code these values? So let's see how can we do away with this. So there are three ways that we can actually remove these hard coded values and use variables in place of that. The first way would be something like this. So we can use addition of 10 plus number plus and plus number 2 plus, let's say we add an equal to sign here, plus the result. Okay, let's add it here as well. Okay, now let's run our file. Okay, so we have python space variables.py. So it print our first output, which is addition of 12 and 13. It has given us an error, and read the error carefully. It says type error, can only concatenate str and not int to the str, because we forgot to convert these numbers into a string. So let's do that now. So here we were supposed to add str in parentheses. We also need to convert this into a string and this as well into a string. Now I will run this again, python space variables.py, and yes, we have the proper output. Okay, so I hope that you got the idea how to use it using the plus symbol. Now let's see the other way. So we saw how to use the string concatenation over here to actually print the proper results. Now let's see the other way of doing the same thing but without a concatenation. So in place of this, we are going to put %d, %d, and %d, and here percent space, and we will put a parenthesis, and inside parenthesis we are going to write number comma number 2 comma result. Let's run our program variables.py, and yes, it works. Now let's see what is that line in. So here, if you see in this line, I replaced these str number 2 and str result statements with %d. Now this %d stands for a replacement value, and that replacement value is right now going to be a digit. So any digit that I'm going to put over there, I'll write %d. Now these %d were 3 times, so it is mandatory for me to supply 3 variables or 3 numbers over here. If I do not supply 3, it will start giving an error. Okay. Now, is it only in %d? So no, there are other characters, like you can use %s for replacing a string. You can use %i also for replacing the integer numbers. You can use %f for floats. Now let's see the another way. So I'll just copy this, paste it here. Now the %d, %s, all these things were older way, which were there till Python 2.7. In later on, they added a format function for a string. So let's see that. So format function says you can use curly brace and put the indexes. So what is an index? That I'll explain. So let's put 2 and dot format. So since string is an object, so this entire thing is a string and it's an object. So to use a method on this object, we have to use a dot operator that we already saw. Format is a method, or we can say a function on strings, which allows us to format a string in a particular style. Now here I provided a replacement pattern. So the replacement pattern is specified with opening and closing curly brace. Inside that I have given these indexes 0, 1 and 2. And inside the format function I have passed these 3 parameters: number, comma number 2, comma result. Now we have to be really careful with these indexes. If we are not careful, it might display a wrong message. So let's first see the output of this, and then I'll show you if we misplace or put the indexes wrong, how it will display the output. Now let's say Python variables.py and enter. See, it has shown us proper answer. Okay. Now let's say if by mistake we put 1 in place of 0 and 0 in place of 1 in those indexes. So now here I'm going to change this to 1. Let's say I make this 2 and this as 0. Okay. So remember, our 0th index is number. Number 2 is index number 1 and index number 2 is result. So let's see the output of this statement. Python variables.py and see the output. It's although the addition has properly performed and it has 25 as a result, but because we misplaced those index numbers, it is showing addition of 13 and 25 is 12. So as a message, it is a wrong. Now let's correct these indexes. So they should be 0, they should be 1, they should be 2. Python variables.py. Output is now again correct. See the last line. It says 12 and 13 is 25. Here it was 13 and 25 is 12. Now let's see the another way of using the format function. So let's say I'll copy and paste it. Same way. Now let me change these indexes with the labels. So labels are nothing but you can call it as another name that you gave inside a string, which you will be using to replace, or you can say that you will be using them as a replacement pattern. So let's name it as result num_1 equal to num underscore 2. Let's take it on next line. Give a space and result equal result. Now here if you see, I created a label num1 which I have used over here and gave it a value as number. So the first variable name. Then I have created another label num2 to which I have used here and assigned the value number 2. And the third label that I created, a result, I have assigned the value as result. So now here if you see, I created three labels, num1 and num2 and the result. Okay, but if you see here, num1 and num2 are differing with the actual variable name, whereas result is exactly same as the variable name. Now why? Actually there is no specific rule for it. You can have any name for a label. You just need to make sure that the value or a variable that you want to have as a replacement for that label is correct. Now, the most advisable way is to use the same name as the variable name instead of using some other name for the label. So, like the result label that I created, and I'm assigning it a result as a variable. But this is a advice, or I can say that it's a good practice. It need not be the hard and fast rule. You can have any label name, but if you use this variable name also as a label name, it gives more sense. Now whoever is reading that line, print state or a print statement, will understand exactly what is happening. Okay, now let's see whether it runs successfully or not. Let's run our code. Variables.py. It works perfectly fine. It gives us a proper result. So whether you are using indexes in a format function or labels, both the things are working. Now there is one word of caution over here that I would like to add. Whenever you are using indexes as a replacement pattern, you need to be really careful about the variables that you are putting over here. So these variables should be in exactly same sequence as you would like to put them as an index numbers over there. Otherwise, best approach would be to use labels so that you need not worry about the sequence. Like here, let's say instead of printing num1 first, I put result and then I'll just put extra print statement here, format, just to give you an idea that this is what we are working on. Let's run the program again, Python variables, and yes, it works properly, right? So now whether the sequence we have used is num1, num2 and result as per the labels, or num1 result and num2, it doesn't matter. It will still have the proper message. Now Python 3 has added one more syntax, which is using f strings. So now let's see what is an f string and how to use them. So what f string says is you need not use a format function. It will take care of itself. So instead of just using format function, we can use f over here, then double quotes and our string. We just need to make sure that we write the proper variable names over here. So it's a number, it is number 2, and now let's see the result. Now let's run our program. Yes, it works perfectly fine. So the f string is an advanced version of formatting a string, which is a really good way if you know what you are trying to do. You don't have to remember about the sequence, you do not have to create a new labels, you just have to replace the variables wherever required.